Welcome, Alex.A. I'm going to speak today about something that a lot of people get confused about. Impedance matching. Impedance matching, which is matching the resistance of your speaker to your amplifier. It's quite simple. I'm going to do it in a very simple way and a practical way. I've watched a few people explaining this, and they get out charts and bits of paper and they do diagrams and they do formula and so on, but I'm going to just do it very simply. I'm also going to talk briefly about power matching, but for now let's start with impedance matching. These are 8 ohm speakers, right? That's an 8 ohm speaker. That's an 8 ohm speaker. That means that they have a resistance load on the amplifier of 8 ohms per channel. Simple, right? I'm playing them on amplifier. I'm connecting them on an amplifier which runs at 8 ohms quite happily, right? Now, when you add another speaker, and let's change something around a bit. What I'm doing now is I'm going to connect a patch lead from this speaker across to the other speaker, so you can see that I've got 2 cables going in there. That one goes to the amplifier. That one goes to another speaker. So it goes to this speaker over here. Right? Now, I've connected those 2 speakers together. They are now connected in parallel. If they're connected in parallel, even though this speaker is 8 ohms and this speaker is 8 ohms, they have now become a 4 ohm load on the amplifier, because when you put speakers in parallel, you divide the impedance of one speaker by 2, right? So 2 8 ohm speakers divided by 2 is 4 ohms. So your amplifier now has got a 4 ohm load on that channel. You have to make sure that your amplifier is capable of driving speakers at 4 ohms, otherwise you may end up damaging your amplifier. I've connected these in this way for demonstration purposes, but it's the same way you would connect a top end and a sub speaker together on one channel, except that this cable, which is now going from the amplifier to here, would normally go into the sub, and then this patch lead would come from the sub other socket, the other speak-on socket, up to this top speaker, and that would give you a 4 ohm load. So your sub would be 8 ohms and your top speaker would be 8 ohms. Then your amp would have a 4 ohm load. Now, welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about power. These speakers are 8 ohms. Now, it does amuse me a little when I see manufacturers, when they're advertising their speakers or amplifiers or whatever, and they put, this speaker will handle, this speaker is 1000 watts. And you read the small print, and what it actually is 450 watts RMS and 1000 watt peak. Let me tell you now, don't take any notice of the peak output. It's garbage. Do not take any notice of that when you're buying the speakers, right? The RMS value is the thing you need to look at. When they put a peak value, technically they're being truthful in what they say, but practically it's a no-no. In other words, the speaker may take 1000 watts for 2 milliseconds. So it enables them to say that it can handle 1000 watts when it doesn't, right? So always take note of the RMS, forget the peak. The RMS is the nominal input to the speaker. So it will play at, for example, these here are 200 watts RMS. Therefore they will play 200 watts RMS. They will run at 200 watts all night. Right? As long as you've got a clean source and a clean output from your amplifier. In other words, you're not distorting your amplifier, you're not square waving or anything like that, you're just playing it totally within the parameters of the amplifier. It will play 200 watts all night. Right? Now, as I said, these speakers are 200 watts. If you're buying an amplifier to put on if I was buying an amplifier to put on these speakers, it's arguable, and there's a sort of bit of a debate as to what sort of power you should go for. But I would say, as a rule of thumb, your amplifier needs to be at least 50% more powerful. So in other words, these are 200 watt speakers. I would probably connect it to a 300 watt amp, 300 watt per channel amplifier. That gives it a bit of headroom. The amplifier can run at 200 watts and not be working too hard, which means it won't clip and it won't square wave, which means your speakers will work quite nicely. So I would put sort of, a 300 watt amp through these 200 watt speakers. Some people say, double the power. Well, I don't know about that, but I would say 50% more. Your amplifier needs to be 50% more powerful than your speakers. And as long as your source is clean, you'll be fine. If you've got, and the same applies to, these are full range speakers, the same applies to subs and so on and so forth. The only thing with a sub, you need a sort of a decent amplifier with a decent current rating and output to sort of play bass, because bass does use quite a bit more electric and current than the top section does, and it does drive the speakers harder. Okay, Alex.A.